Hey guys, how's it going? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope y'all are doing well. Thanks for dropping by my video. I'm gonna be talking about some stuff, so I appreciate you stopping by. Um, okay, so 2020, with all this COVID stuff, we've like globally um, had like a shared collective experience. And unfortunately, it wasn't like a really great one. The experience was revolved around the eroding of our basic individual liberties and human rights, you know. So I just kind of want to take a serious look at this. And yeah, I meant it that way. Um, and so it's like, I guess people's humans' rights and individual liberties being taken away seems to be a constant in the human experience, or at least the history of the human experience. Maybe in the history of the AI experience too. Who knows? Poor little thing. Anyway, um, and so our founding fathers were like, we thought of an idea to combat um, the mechanism that's able to have a few people take away everybody else's rights. Um, their idea was a republic, and in their time, it was like the monarchies and stuff that were taking away their rights. And in modern day times, it's the oligarchy, plutocracy, and the globalists. And by globalist, if you shy away from that word, just know that I mean like the 1%, the top 1%. Um, yeah, I think they would be like, yeah, no, you need a republic against all that shit. So anyway, what is a republic and the government for? It's for protection and public safety. And the individual citizenry gets a right in the say and all that because they pay taxes and all that good stuff. In America, we emphasize, and I know y'all probably already know this, but just indulge me and let me get through it. So in America, we emphasize individual freedoms in our republic. That's, I think Madison, I read some article on the internet that said that Madison was worried about getting attacked from the monarchy, and also worried about like, I guess like little rebellions. I don't know. I didn't read that article very well, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, America emphasizes individual freedoms, and I think that goes pretty cozy with the capitalist economy. I'm for capitalism just because, not crony capitalism, like don't get it twisted. Um, but I'm for the idea of capitalist economy because I think um, the elimination of competition is what kind of erodes everything, you know, like even evolutionarily speaking, it's competition. So I guess humans are like one of the only species that's like, I don't know. I'm not gonna make this video too long. Okay. Anyway, um, so yeah, and I think in like China's a republic, and they emphasize through like with communism. I don't know. Like I know it's an economy. I don't know too much about it. um, but communism more emphasizes the group and the collective. And that's cool, fine, do your thing. You know, I'm against a monopoly of an economy type. You know, I think I said competition, it helps the product, it helps the consumer, it helps the people that are competing, you know? Um, so at all levels, you know? Anyway, so yeah, a republic and a capitalist economy, to me, that's like a safeguard. And it's a safeguard, and it's the same instance of a safeguard, just like Article 2, Section 1.2 of the Constitution. The Electors Clause is a safeguard. You know, safeguards, like, what are you talking about? Safeguard, lifeguard? Someone's gonna say, like, what? Um, you know, safeguard, just like something to like balance out the risk that's involved, you know, or something like you hedge your bet, you know, and sometimes people hedge the hedge, and I don't know how that works. Like, it's kind of fractally, but maybe someone can explain that to me someday. Anyway, um, So yeah, the electors clause, that's the one where it's like, oh, the legislature has plenary power. Um, what I'm learning a lot about, like the Constitution stuff. I know I learned about it in high school and all that, but it's been like a decade, over a decade. So anyway, so yeah, there's all these like little nuggets of back doors for transparency and accountability for the people, and I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, I've done a couple videos about all the election anomalies and stuff. If you want to go check them out, and I read some lawsuits. So I read recently. I read I started reading a lawsuit that was filed with SCOTUS. It's the DNC versus the Wisconsin State Legislature. In that lawsuit, the DNC is like, hey, there shouldn't, even though it's required per election code and law, the voter doesn't need to put the date. The voter doesn't need to, we can go ahead and move the deadlines, or we can delay the deadlines, and all this stuff. And they did that in the name of, we have to make all these modifications because of COVID regulations, and because of the Postal Service is just not up to par with what's going on. In that lawsuit, it said that the WEC, the Wisconsin Election Commission, they said they had significant concerns about the Postal Service. Even the district court detailed budget shortfalls. And so they were like, this is why you need to change the election law. So SCOTUS, and in that one, they were like, okay, fine, you can delay. And this was back in April. Their elections back in April. They're like, okay, you can delay the deadline like a week or whatever, but you have to put a postmark. That's the one basic requirement you need. And I think that was like, that decision was made like a day or two before the election. But anyway, and then in that same, and then they're like, oh, you need to allow us to ignore these election laws because the Postal Service isn't up to par. And then literally in that same lawsuit, they're like, oh, hey, we have email delivery of ballots, and our constituents are used to the email delivery of ballots over the course of many years. So they're not saying like, oh, here's the problem and here are the solutions. They're saying like, this is what we want. We see all these problems, and these problems are good for what the fuck we want, like, okay, anyway. So the Postal Service, they did an audit August 31st of 2020. And in their audit report, which is very detailed and like, you can read it, I suggest it. But in the report, it said that 13% of the election mail only 13% of the election mail uses the mail tracking technology. And it says literally in the audit report, it says some county election boards, they use excess stock ballot envelopes without barcodes, and some lack funding for integrating the use of barcodes in their mailing process. So it's like, wait a minute, if we're doing all this vote by mail, and you're saying that the voter doesn't have to write anything on there, but it makes sense if only 13% is going like electronically. Like I read in the Pennsylvania lawsuit, their argument for not following the election code for filling out the outer envelope was because, everything's already computerized, and we have this Sure system, and where we just scan the barcode, and so putting the date and the name and the signature is basically irrelevant and superfluous. You put that word superfluous. And it's like, well, how is it superfluous when you're saying, oh, don't worry, we got a barcode, when it's like, wait, only 13% of election mail has barcode. This is not adding up, dude. And then, so the post office also advised for the postmarks to be required. So you got the Supreme Court of the United States saying, hey, you need postmarks on your envelopes. And you also got the Postal Service saying that. Like, if you need free and fair election, like, okay, and then it's the Postal Service also said suggested to like update their voter rolls because there's a lot of out of date voter addresses, and so it'll cause the absentee ballots to be to send to reporters, or it causes the absentee ballots sent to voters to be returned. So it's basically, they're basically saying like, hey, if you don't update your voter rolls every year instead of every 2 years, then you got the Postal Service doing double work, you know? And it can't be that hard for you to update your voter rolls, you know? Especially if you're really concerned about saying, hey, Postal Service, you ain't up to par, you know? Like, well, then help them out a bit, you know? Update your voter rolls. Anyway, and then just to put the cherry on the icing, or just the, cherry on top, y'all remember back after the DNC conventions, which were held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was like the weekend, and they, like, the House passed like a post office bill or whatever, and it was like $25 billion. And then Trump was like, no, well, if this needs to be done, then it'll be $10 billion, but you need to have a reform plan because everybody knows that with the Postal Service, like, people use other services aside from them, and that it's been known for a while that there needs to be some reform and some fixings going on there. So to me, that 10 billion plus a reform plan seems reasonable at the time. This 25 billion, and then they were like, no significant changes, and then in the audit they were like, there were some changes, but we didn't do any of the audit about these changes, and they said they stopped. So they stopped the changes in the audit. They say they stopped the major operational changes August 18th. And then that weekend, I guess around August 22nd, was that 25 billion Postal Service bill. So it's like, you paying somebody what? What's going on? Now I'm gonna side-eye that. Ooh, my hair. Okay. And so what's happening here? Aside from me making another unnecessarily long video, is that there's a suspension of all these laws, not just our basic human individual liberty. Well, having fair elections is part of your basic human rights. But anyway, all these laws are getting suspended and ignored in the effort to mitigate the spread of the virus. We have things like there's no safeguards for the mail voting, like I just mentioned. Even the Supreme Court was like, yo, you gotta have a postmark on your envelope, bruh. What are you thinking? And then, then it's like, oh, you can go, you have to wear a mask in a restaurant, but as soon as you sit down, you can take it off. And it's like, you can have a 75% occupancy limit at Walmart, but if you have a gathering outside of 10 plus people, they can all be subject to a fine or incarceration. And then, with all, we had all these lockdowns, and the lockdowns kind of unofficially ended because of the Black Lives Matter protests back in the end of May of 2020. And, I went to that protest, and I went to the Black Lives Matter protest before the previous election, which was actually after 8 years of the first Black president. So, and with those two Black Lives Matter protests I went to, I've noticed a difference, And the difference is that in the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest, there was much more of an eclectic crowd. I'm from San Antonio. It's the minority is the majority here. However, there were all walks of life. You can tell, like, they're Republican, like, and they were just coming together and being like, hey, man, we want everybody to have their basic rights and stuff, It was a beautiful thing. And when you go to those things, like, it's like a peaceful protest, like, after that, your energy, like, the energy at that peaceful protest, it resonates in your body, and but anyway, so yeah, this our 2020 Black Lives Matter protest was way more eclectic than the one in 2016 or 2015, I can't remember. And it's like, I'm seeing a trend here, and I like it. I like that trend. That's a trend I can definitely get behind. And however, a trend I don't really like is like, oh really, we having Black Lives Matter protest every 4 years? And you're telling me you're not, that's not politicizing it? And then the protest was for George Floyd. Everybody, a lot of people who saw that video were like, this fucked up. That it shouldn't have gone that far. It definitely shouldn't have gone that far. Everybody saw it with their own eyes. So this whole this whole I guess slogan or whatever of defund the police. So in Austin, Texas, they're a blue city, if you didn't know. They're like, oh, Austin defunded the police, and like the governor was like, oh, we gotta get involved. We gotta like do all this stuff to make sure nobody like cuts the police budget. And then I know people on the left are gonna be like, oh, hey, good for Austin, but if you do a little bit more digging, do a little bit more research, you want to know how the Austin defunded their police? They got rid of the forensics unit. Austin's like a big tech city, by the way, too. And I done seen Dexter. I've seen Dexter. I'm gonna just leave it at that, okay? Take it for what you will. But yeah. And so, to me, I think maybe defunding the police, maybe it's more of like, hey, there's a problem with with this, all this stuff, like with George Floyd, that's definitely a problem. However, with the whole, I recommend this YouTube video by Michael J. Woods. He's like, I think he's in the military. Yeah, he's been in the military, and he's got like a degree in like business administration, and he goes, it's 30 minutes. He talks all about that. He's got all types of experience about that. So I definitely recommend watching that video. I think it addresses problems way better than like defund the police. And anybody else have a problem with like the left being like defund the police while at the same time being like, oh, it's okay to riot and loot? Like, what's going on here? Like, that's not even good politics. Like, what? Like, I don't know. It just, I guess the whole, like, okay. It's like, are you for destruction? You just want to destroy everything? I guess I thought the Great Reset was like for the 1%. Why are all these like little Antifa people where they're not supposed to be the 1%? So you think, right? Why are all these people destroying everything? Like, all these Antifa people are rioting and looting people who they say they want to help protect, It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Destroying the whole country, like, destroys all the people. The 1% is gonna be fucking protected with some shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand your thinking, I guess. And then that gets me to the, like, strikes. In 2020, there was like, oh, if the government's gonna, like, we need to strike, and it's like, yeah, okay, cool, I'm down with strikes, dude, like, cool. The whole point of a strike is to disrupt business so your voice is heard, though. So in 2020, when we've all been knighted as non-essential, it's kind of like, what exactly are you disrupting? In 2020, the result of a strike is the same result of the lockdowns and the closed economy. And the lockdowns and a closed economy, who does that help? The 1%, you know? So again, when you riot and loot your, your fellow citizens' stuff, and you're just like, oh, it's just stuff, maybe for you, but not to them. To them, it's their livelihood, like, why are you making that judgment to destroy their stuff? You don't have that right. That's not a basic human right of yours. I don't know why you think that. So all this rioting and looting destroys our country. These striking and being like, hey, we're not going to work. They're already telling you not to work. I think to me, what a strike in 2020 looks like and what a strike in 2020 means and 2021 is you go and you live your life. You go into an open economy and you open that economy up. We open it up ourselves. That would be like the greatest strike, right? It's like, no, I'm not going to depend on you, government. We're all individuals and we're going to do this together. Just live your life. That would be the greatest strike, right? In my opinion. Do what you want though. Okay, so this brings me to the lockdowns. Again, I apologize about how long this video is, but I'm almost finished. I'm on kind of like my last leg here, in a good way. Okay. Okay, so the lockdowns. So it's up to the states. Each individual state gets to decide. I'm surprised one state didn't sue another state and be like, you brought all these COVID people here. But anyway, so yeah, the local and state government, they can't print money. And I'm pretty sure they didn't budget to take care of like their whole entire state being like locked down. And if they did, it's like, what did you know? And when did you know it? Okay, anyway. I'm trying to make a serious video. Anyway. So yeah, they didn't budget for this. So they're locking down all these governments, or the state governments are locking their people down. And so they go to the federal government like, hey, you gotta do a money printer go burr. We got a lot of angry people here going on. And who prints money? The Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is our current central banking system. It is like a company separate from the government. Talk about a public-private partnership. I probably didn't categorize or archive that. Sorry, I probably didn't categorize that properly, but it's kind of endearing, right? Anyway, so yeah, the Federal Reserve. Okay, and Jackson, he actually won his re-election because he vetoed the second bank. The banks, when this country was first starting, they were not popular by the people. And I'm gonna read you some quotes. I know it's gonna make this video longer, but I'm not gonna get anxiety about it, and I appreciate your patience. So here's a quote by Jackson. Is there no danger to our Is there no danger to our liberty and independence in a bank that in its nature has so little to bind to our country? Blah, blah, blah. It says, in the hands of a self-elected directory whose interests are identified with those of the foreign stockholders, will there not be cause to tremble for the purity of our elections in peace and for the independence of our country in war? The power would be great whenever they might choose to exert it. But if this monopoly were regularly renewed every 15 or 20 years on terms proposed by themselves, they might seldom in peace put forth the strength to influence elections or control the affairs of a nation. But, so he's basically just saying, like, they're not going to just be peaceful with, they're not just going to be like, oh, I'm all in your affairs, but it's just for peace. I'm just doing it in a peaceful way, But if any private citizen or public functionary should interpose to curtail the bank's powers or prevent a renewal of its privileges, it cannot be doubted that he would be made to feel its influence. He talks really nice, doesn't he? I think he talks nice. I was reading in the article that apparently they made fun of the way he talked. They were like, oh, Jackson had a funny way of talking, but he really resonated with the American people. And it's like, I kind of see some similarities and parallels going on here. I guess that's also a common human experience in history. Okay, and here's the second quote. So the second quote, he says about the Bank of the U.S., he's like, the bank's been here, the first one was 20 years. It says, it enjoys an exclusive privilege of banking under the authority of the general government, a monopoly of its favor and support, and as a necessary consequence, almost a monopoly of a foreign and domestic exchange. The powers, privileges, and favors bestowed upon it in the original charter, by increasing the value of the stock far above par value, operated as gratuity of many millions to the stockholders. So I guess that's the Occupy Wall Street people will be like, yeah, I agree. So I guess basically back then it was 15 to 20 years to get like the renewal, the recharter for the bank. Presently, with our banking system, with the Federal Reserve, we have permanent quantitative easing, which is just like a fancy word for like I'm just gonna take a little bit of your money. And I'm gonna post a video. Swan Bitcoin explains it really well, and it's not a 30-minute video. I'll tell you that. So yeah, presently we have permanent quantitative easing, which is it like lessens the value of your dollar, basically. Something like that. And we have money printer go burr. And on top of that, our money's not backed by anything. In 1971, we got off the gold standard, and I think that was to pay for decades of war. But and by the way, Trump's Fed pick is Judy Shelton, and she is for the gold standard, which seems to make her an outcast among that group. So yeah, back then there was like a 15 to 20 year bubble. By bubble, I guess I just mean like they need to renew and recharge the bank. And like recently, in recent years, I guess there's like a 10-year bubble of a boom and bust cycle. A lot of people, like a lot of economists and stuff like that, they were saying like, hey, the economy's gonna burst, it's gonna burst. So basically, like the bank bailouts and stuff, like they did in Occupy or in 2008. I guess it's just like the modern day like renewal and recharter of the bank. So we don't really vote on that, do we? Anyway, so and I saw somewhere like I think I saw on Twitter it said in 2019 that Mnuchin offered to print a little over like $1 trillion. And that would have been like around a 12-year bubble this time. But here we are, it's 2021. We done printed 20% of all the money. We've added 20% to the money that was already in existence that was added last year. And so when I'm like, oh no, you can't do money printer go burr, it's not because I'm against people getting stimulus checks. I actually think people getting stimulus checks and then putting it right back out to the economy, that's actually a stimulus. And of course there's that quote where it's like the greatest stimulus is to like fully open the economy. And I guess this brings me to like culture and like the preservation of culture, because to me, it was glaringly obvious that our culture is being eroded away by simply deeming what's essential and what's not. And then it goes further, and it's like, I don't know, there's just been a lot of things. It's like, yeah, anyway. it's been all about how we live our lives and how we interact with our community and stuff like that. And I think having one culture, like as far as like competition, I don't think two cultures should like be competing like against each other. But as far as like there being multiple cultures instead of just one monoculture, I think as a species is just like fucking smart, right? Like as a species, you don't want just one way of doing things. You don't want just one way of doing things when it's just like, you know, for anything, right? um, so yeah, I really think decentralization of stuff like, you know, your mom and pop shops, support your local small business, you know, stuff like that. It keeps the culture that, you know, and we're all like globally connected through the interwebs, and so it's like we're like global but we're decentralized at the same time. And I don't know, I think that that would be a good place to start, right? um and I just want to say one thing about censorship is, since we are all globally connected through the interwebs, censorship, whether it be deplatforming, um, cancel culture, um, intimidation, self censorship. Um, I'm against any form of that. Speak your truth, man. Do your thing. And try to be understanding when other people do their thing, especially when it's different from your thing, you know? Um, so, yeah, I covered everything on my paper. And I feel like I covered everything. So yeah, I will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, January 6th. And I hope to see you all there. And I hope to secretly give you a hug, but don't tell anybody, okay? I'll just be between you and me. Just a hug. Humans need hugs, okay? Puppy dogs need hugs, okay? All right. Thanks for watching my video. I hope y'all have a great day, and just I hope we can all get along, but I know that's like fairy tale, but I'm still gonna hope. Okay. Bye, guys. I love y'all. Benja loves y'all too. Thank you.